Hey YouTube, happy Tuesday. Believe it or not, we're actually getting a lot of rain here in Southern California. So this has been something that we've really been enjoying considering how bone dry it's been out here over the last 6 to 7 months. So I just want to do a quick video giving kind of an update for 2019. I realize I'm a few weeks behind on that, a little late, but definitely better late than never. 2019 is kind of shaping up to be what I would consider being an interesting year starting off. I would really kind of classify this year as more unknowns than knowns compared to, I would say, the last handful of years. There's been a lot of things that are happening in rapid succession here over the last several weeks and kind of leading up over the last several months that are looking to be what I would call maybe problematic. I think this year is going to be a year as preppers. I would almost consider it kind of the year of the prepper. There's a lot of opportunities to be prepared, to get ready, and I think it's probably going to be more important now than ever, at least kind of my gut sense, so to speak, on what I'm looking at down the road here this coming year. There's always a question of what is it that I see as problematic. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not going to pretend to be telling you that I have some great insight into what's coming down this year, but there's definitely some things at the moment that are kind of shaping up to be problematic. Number one, obviously, if you've been following the news, what's happening right now in the presidency and the administration with the Mueller investigation, with a lot of the top positions within the administration being vacant that nobody even wants to touch it. There's been several things that are kind of coming together. It almost feels like coming to a head. And I think the next few weeks, especially if the Mueller investigation does drop, if he finally releases his findings, I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't think it's going to be super climatic, but nonetheless, I think it's going to cause definitely some issues. And if you know the stock market, or if you follow it rather, it doesn't like uncertainty. And that kind of leads me into the next point is the second thing I'm kind of concerned about is watching the stock market. If you've been following it over the last couple of months, there's been a lot of ups and downs. Again, a lot of, I hate to use the word uncertainties over and over, but it definitely feels like we're hitting at almost the top. If you study markets long enough, look at the last 70 to 80 years, you can definitely see typical cycles every 7 to 10 years, up, down, up, down. And it feels like we're really at the peak of year 10 in this particular market, especially with the '08 crash and us recovering. So I don't know, looking at where things are going this year, I know the stock market obviously plays a huge part in United States, around the world for that matter, but specifically here and how that impacts everything else, whether it's food prices, medicine, everything. So that's something I'm personally following very closely, and I'm trying to do all I can to prepare myself, my family, to in a sense kind of insulate us from what may fall out with that. The other thing that's also looking to be potential problem, just right before I started filming, the vote came in on Brexit with Theresa May, and there's, I believe, what's considered the biggest defeat since 1924 within their own country as far as something that's gone to a vote. And so there's, I have no idea how that's going to play out, but it's looking like it may be a little rough for those, my subscribers, my viewers that are in the UK. Definitely, if I were in your shoes, I would definitely prepare and stock up and get ready for, again, a time where things may get a little kind of hectic, so to speak. So with that, the 4 things I'm personally going to prepare for this year and going to be focusing on, I've shared this here recently on my channel. My number one weakness in prepping is food. When I first started out in prepping, I got really serious with the typical things, firearms, gear. In my particular situation, living in Southern California, I really focused on water since we have none where I live especially. And so I've done a good job building a lot of those areas, security, things with water. I've got a lot of water, backups, but food is one of the biggest weaknesses. And so I'm going to really go after that with a passion, with a vengeance this year, especially over the next few months, studying it. And as I learn, I'll definitely be sharing that on my channel. So expect to be seeing information as far as long-term food storage. That's one thing I'm going to be emphasizing and focusing on over the next several months. Another thing I'm going to begin to do is plan on by the spring, which is only a few months away, so I've got my work cut out for me, is begin to learn how to raise bees. I don't expect by any means to be an expert, but I want to get some information, learn from locals around here that are into it, and begin to prepare for that, as I'd love to have that backup source of honey for a lot of different reasons. The other thing is gardening. I began to do composting about 3 or 4 months ago. I took a course to the city, learned a lot, And I've been learning as I compost. I've made a lot of mistakes, but now I finally have kind of figured out how to mix dry and wets in the proper combination. Just last week, or actually a few days ago, I was going out and rotating my compost, and it was steaming like crazy. It finally kind of hit that sweet spot where you're getting that anaerobic or aerobic probably breakdown, and just the heat that comes off of it. It's really neat as you're seeing things decompose. So gardening is one thing I'm going to begin to really focus on. I just bought all this land about a year ago, or 10 months ago, and I'm going to really begin to focus on learning how to garden. And of course, composting, getting your soil ready is the foundation. So that's why I began to focus on that over the last few months. So I'll also be sharing that here pretty soon on my channel. One of the other things, if you've watched my channel long enough, you know I love doing reviews on solar generators. I'm actually going to have a big announcement on that. If you're looking to get into a solar generator, check out my channel Thursday morning. I'll have a big announcement. But one of the things I'm really fascinated by is renewable power sources. Obviously, living here in Southern California, we have nothing but sun. So having that as an option is something I've been working on learning, and I'll be doing probably more videos on that over the next several weeks, several months. But one thing I'll definitely be getting into here pretty soon is wind power, wind turbines. That's something that fascinates me. Where I currently live, we have a lot of wind. And so that's just kind of makes sense to put that in part of the combination. So those are the 4 primary things I'm going to be focusing on, and I'll be sharing on the channel obviously as well. Hopefully you find those interesting, because as I research, as I study, as I learn, I'll be sharing those a lot on my channel. Honestly, the last year I haven't done my typical weekly video. It's been kind of hit or miss. I've tried to crank up the videos over the last several months. But moving into this property has been a bit overwhelming. I, again, got 5 acres in March of last year. And it turns out the previous owner kind of gave up about 5 years ago trying to do any kind of maintenance around the property. He just kind of quit. So I've had to go through and do a lot of work, just cut back a lot of brush. We live in a high brush territory that is really prone to catching on fire. So I had to spend a lot of time clearing that back, making sure our home is protected, that we have a perimeter, so that if fire does hit our area, our particular home wouldn't be impacted. So I've been focusing on kind of spending a lot of time just cleaning the property. Had to put in a lot of sweat equity to really get things cleaned up and cleared back. So I feel like I've got a handle on the home now, and I've kind of got it in a place where it's in a manageable position where I can hopefully maintain it moving forward, where it's not all these massive projects that I'm having to do. So one of the things, as I've kind of gotten that out of the way, my goal is to turn more time and attention this year back to the channel, continue learning, continue sharing. So hopefully you'll be encouraged to follow along. I definitely would love to hear from the community about your long-term goals for this year, what you're planning for 2019, what you're planning on learning, what you're planning on focusing on as far as building up your preps. Definitely would love to hear those in the comment section below, so please feel free to share that. Again, thanks for taking the time to watch this video, subscribing to the channel. Again, I don't really, I can't sit here and tell you this, and that is going to happen in 2019, but I feel like, again, just based on what I'm seeing kind of coming down the pipe, again, if you've watched my channel long enough, I'm not an alarmist. I don't really get into what I would consider fear bait or fear tactics to try to draw in subscribers. I don't feel comfortable doing that. But I think there are times when you've got to look at what's going on around you and say, okay, is there potential for problems or challenges? And I feel like this year definitely has some, things that you've got to strongly consider are these threats that you want to prepare for. Again, I can't tell you there's going to be some huge market crash or some government overthrow. I'm not personally concerned about that, but I think there are a lot of unknowns that, as preppers, it's going to be wise to get ready for. Having food, water, security, medical, having those things lined up at a bare minimum 2 to 3 month backup, I think is a good starting point. I know a lot of my subscribers live in apartments or small environments. If you do, definitely find ways to be creative, and I will continue to try to create content that shares techniques and ways to make sure you're able to do that within those environments. But for me, my home, I definitely feel like this is going to be a good year to get ready. Again, I'm not necessarily saying there's anything major I see on the horizon, but there are things that give me pause and give me concern enough to make sure I've got everything in line. On that note, I'll definitely be rolling out some videos here pretty soon. I'll have some information on SHOT Show in Las Vegas next week. I'll share that in a separate video. But again, as always, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Again, post your comments in the comment section below, again, regarding your goals. As always, be safe out there.